Hey, this video contains spoilers for Divinity Twilight, Book 1. War! That's it. That's the intro. Rebirth is the first book of the Divinity Twilight series, a book about how conflicts between siblings can go really far, and how sometimes legendary heroes aren't as legendary as they want us to believe. I received a copy from the author that he very kindly signed for me along with a bookmark and a poster. Look at this! How adorable! Thank you so much for this gift. It's time for me to tear it apart. The prologue. One word comes to mind when I think about it. Confusing. I always need a little time to get immersed in the story and have a sense of anything that's happening, and this prologue was too much all at once. 45 pages of multiple characters trying to catch my attention, world building that felt a little like an info dump, and names of people, places, magics, things in general. So many names thrown around. Now, all of this doesn't keep the prologue from being good, because although I'm being a poo-poo head, there's one thing I can't deny. This is a very strong start. To summarize, we have three brothers at the head of Lozaria. Each has a different view on how to reach peace. Rabban thinks technology and progress are the key. Darmesha believes in communication and understanding. And last but not least, Sarkon wants to force peace through strength and dominance. I'm sure you can guess which one becomes a problem. Sarkon! Yay! Good job! He turns on his brothers and creates a giant mess. Everybody's at war, and Rabban and Darmesha do their best to stop their out-of-control sibling. They kind of manage to, but also fail a lot. Rabban gets sick, a terrible thing called the Red Plague that is supposed to be eradicated but that Sarkon brings back. But he and Darmesha keep going. More on this later. Fast forward to the present, around 700 years later, when I expected things to have changed. But how naive of me. New wars have emerged, people are carrying their ancestors' legacy and are still fighting each other. Will humans ever learn? No! History is like an infinite, infernal loop. You make a big mistake, you erase and then repeat it again. Wow, that kinda reminds me of another world. Anyway, this one guy, hold on, let me find his name. Metellus? You know what? I'm gonna call him that. Metellus is against joining the current war between Rabbanites and Sarkonians. He just wants to sit down and read, and what a big nerd he is. He wrote a book and everything. A book about what really happened during the Big Bad War, one among the many. He basically explained the prologue to me, so let me do it for you. What I didn't mention earlier is how Sarkon collected all 7 pieces of a great magic called Elysium in order to grant any wish he had. The way it works is you give a piece of your soul to any of the Elysium's pieces and bam! Speak your wish, you'll get what you want. Now Sarkon being Sarkon, he went all out. His desire for revenge was so strong, he gave away his entire soul to the magic to create a massive black hole that would consume all life in the world. Rabban and Darmesha managed to limit the damage, but wow, dramatic much? And that's it. That's the whole book. It's like 3 paragraphs long, shortest book I've ever seen, but hey, thanks for the history lesson, I hate it. Jump into a bunch of Rabbanites and Sarkonians fighting. For sports, I guess? I don't know, they must be bored. All I can say is that the whole thing is comedy gold. We follow Van, the leader of a small squad of Sarkonians going into battle. They start with a group of 6 people, then they fall down one by one like dominoes. Van goes, "If the situation wasn't so dire, I'd laugh." The dire situation shouldn't stop you, Van. Believe in your ability to laugh at your own misery. I know I'm laughing at my misery and also yours. Alas, instead of accepting his place in this circus, Van is in denial. "I'm your commanding officer. Nothing will stop me from saving you. Hope. There's hope. I need you to have hope." You say that after losing 3 people from your unit? I don't know. Kinda sounds like you're gonna keep making that promise until there's no one left to hear it. He tells once again the 2 other survivors that they're definitely gonna make it home, and shortly after, an ominous voice rises that only Van can hear. And you know what he thinks of this? He decides that the commands given by the voice, of unknown source, let's remember that, are their best lead right now. Okay, this is official. All of you are dead. Well, only 2 of them make it as they keep running around and reach some kind of cave somewhere. Van and Hans. Hans gets distracted by a group of dangerous creatures. They fight and I think he even blacks out at some point. What's interesting here is Van and the thing he finds in the cave. A husk husk. Terrifying, barely alive, the one that's been calling for him. Ensues a scene that I absolutely loved. Turns out the husk is Sarkon. Dude is still around. He complains about the treatment he received from his brothers, about how they just couldn't understand him and his aspirations. This is how we discover that Sarkon was sealed in this place with Darmetis' blood, and that the only thing able to get him out of here is that same blood. But we are told that the last descendant of Darmetis died recently, meaning that the entire Darmetis line has perished. Weirdly enough, something tells me that's not the case, but I digress. The circus proceeds with the conversation that the two have. I have a dream. Wow, I have a dream too. Oh, really now? How about you forget about it to focus on mine? What you mean? Bring glory to our empire. It only requires yeeting your soul out of your body so I can take its place. But what's in it for me? You get to become a hero? Oh, and hence gets to live? Deal. Well, that was dumb, but highly entertaining, 10 out of 10. As you already get it, Van got bamboozled big time, and Sarkon takes over his body. I don't know if Van's soul is still floating around, mumbling about how, crap, it was a scam, but I can't shake away the feeling that he's totally, completely, utterly done for.
I know that it's hard to hear, but you're done for. I'm not your ordinary dead guy.
Moving on to another kind of circus, let me introduce to you a group of characters, our heroes in the present. I'll need to get a little ahead of myself here to tell you how I feel about each one of them. Valen. Of course I've got to start with him because... oh dear. To put it simply, he reminds me of Voth from The Name of the Wind. And in case you haven't seen my review on it, well, first of all, go watch it. It's pretty funny if I do say so myself. Anything that makes me think of Voth Almighty is just... not it. Valen is arrogant and has a bad case of a superiority complex. There were attempts to justify his behavior and make him a little bit humbler, a little bit more likable, and although his backstory managed to convince me to some extent, most of it didn't work. He's still a butthole. Just look at how he constantly puts down the others, especially Matteo. But of course, he's widely loved and admired because he's gifted or something. He's not even that good. We're all acting like he's the best thing around, but he sucks. He sucks at the very thing that everybody praises him for. Matteo, the polar opposite. While Valen believes in abilities he doesn't have, Matteo doubts abilities he very much has. He's the one that everybody belittles just because he's a bit awkward, to the point where he thinks of himself as a coward. Having been there myself, you know, strongly believing that I was but a mere pile of shit because everybody around me made me feel so, my protective instincts went wild. And it made me quite angry to see how his own friends treated him. He gradually proves himself throughout the book, as we'll see later, which is good, but I will say his inferiority complex felt at times a tiny bit forced. Celeste, a princess, a very obnoxious one. Picture a teenage girl trying to copy her idol. In this case, it would be a girl trying to copy Yasna Collin. Except she fails miserably. She's just that, a pale copy. I say this because, much like Yasna, Celeste acts very cold and haughty. She prides herself in her skills, always being in control and knowing exactly what to do in all situations. But while Yasna still manages to be a respectable and likable character, Celeste just needs to chill the f*** out. All she does is ordering everybody around and getting angry when someone makes the slightest mistake or just doesn't know how to do something. Because of course she knows everything. She's so much better than those ignorant simpletons. Turns out the simpletons are sometimes more capable than she is, and Celeste gets very salty about it. And yeah, just like Valen, she has this sad backstory that helped me understand her a little more, but my empathy was constantly challenged by her irritatingness. Vel, she's described as the mom of the group, but I really didn't get that feeling. To me, she was just weirdly clingy, especially with Valen, always sticking to him like glue. Now, that's justified later on. Turns out she's an empath, and her way of reading others' feelings is turned into a leech. I consider myself an empath, and believe me, I'm not constantly trying to breathe down people's neck. And if you are an empath, don't you dare touch me. Aside from that, Vel doesn't do much, so nah. Leon, the unloved child. Ouch. He spent his life being ostracized by his own family, especially his father, who's quite the piece of shit. Bad father in a fantasy book number... I lost count. Leon escapes the toxic environment of his household. Good for him. Except he goes from seeking the validation of his father to seeking the validation of Valen. tired. We could make a comment on how this is a traumatic response, but Valen is despicable. Find a better role model. Putting that aside, Leon is probably the most likable of the bunch. But unfortunately, Leon will be back. We'll be back to him later. Oh, and there are a couple more characters that I don't even remember the names of. Enough said. Now that we've introduced these beautiful fellas, tell me, how old are they supposed to be again? Because given the constant high school drama atmosphere, I was convinced they were between 16 and 18. But if I'm not mistaken, the book tells us they are actually in their 20s? To which I say, major yikes. I give all of them a 3-point penalty for immaturity. Speaking of which, we get some YA shenanigans. After Valen spends his exam sleeping and the time after bullying, our characters take the practical part of the exam. Some Harry Potter meets the Hunger Games where everybody makes a show of their powers. There's not one magic system, they all kinda do their own thing, which as you can guess, my deficient attention span could barely keep up with, but it's fine. It's all fun and games, at least until the Sarkonian Empire invades Darmesha. That's exciting, but let's see what Sarkon is up to. Remember how he snatched the body of poor Van? Well, forget about it. He wants a new one now. I understand. If I could get a new body, I would. A more marketable one on OnlyFans if possible. But that's not Sarkon's reason. The Van body is decaying, so we need a replacement. And quick. So Sarkon talks to the current Sarkonian Emperor. To prove his identity and the extent of his powers, he paints the walls red, with the heads of the attendees. Picture a massive collective... The Emperor is impressed and we all clap in unison. There's some political meddling that makes me grin in horror. Yes, grin in horror. That's possible. Because Sarkon and Emperor Sarkon make a shady deal that leads Sarkon to cast a powerful spell and destroy Darmesha, which in turn allows the Sarkonians to take over. What are our heroes doing, you might be asking? Well, they're on a ship, flying away from the disaster, but their escape turns to a disaster itself the moment Mateo senses Sarkon's spell and faints. While some are complaining about him, Celeste, Valen. Everybody tries to change ships, but there's a confrontation, and Valen fights stronger than him and faints. He faints! See what I was saying earlier? Thank goodness we got Leon to save the day. I didn't expect him to become the leader here, but he impressed me. Especially when he chose to sacrifice himself by casting a powerful spell to create a magic barrier to protect his friends and then proceeds to die. Leon! I'm not happy about that. Hold on. Is that Sarkon stealing Leon's body? Whoosh! Mateo gets up and pilots the new ship. Celeste gives him a hard time, because of course. But he does super well. Okay, they crash, but they do make it home. This was a speed run of what happened. It actually takes a little while, and after that, the book kinda lost me. I can't pinpoint exactly where it started. Maybe halfway through? It gradually felt like we were running in circles, and my interest kept flip-flopping. Here are some notable moments though. The secret code in the TV news that somebody on the squad notices. It was very clever, and Celeste isn't the one to catch it, so ha! She was salty about it. Another Celeste moment that I found hilariously ridiculous was her yelling at an unconscious Valen. "Wake up, stupid imbecile!" she yells. And it works? I honestly don't know which one of you is the biggest imbecile here. The Kit chapters. I thought this new character was being introduced way too late, but I quickly realized who it really was. Kit is young Valen, and these chapters are flashbacks of his life in Sewer Town before getting adopted. I appreciated these. They give a retrospective view of Valen, and they're also well written. The love triangle, question mark, between Mateo, Val, and Lilith. I thought he liked Lilith, but now he's got the hots for Val? I mean, he's allowed to have more than one crush, I guess, but the second one just kinda happened. I'm confused.
10 seconds later.
No, wait, scratch that. Val presses her, female attributes against Mateo's back, and his brain goes, Yes, I see. I understand now. These things put aside, along with the less enticing parts, I'm a little bummed by the fact that we didn't see Sarkon in any of this. He's the most interesting characters to me, and I wish we knew what he's planning exactly at this point. But I'm sure we're not done with him yet. Wait, I actually have one more complaint. Their names. Val, Valen, Van, Sarkon, Sarkon. Do you hear it? Do you hear how close these sounds are? My brain too smooth for this. I needed to stop sometimes just to remember who we're talking about. But don't mind me, that's a me problem. I feel like my humor doesn't come across sometimes, so let me make sure you understand. Rebirth is a strong debut. I like the book. The writing was pleasant and did an effective job at conveying story elements, especially the flashbacks. Those are particularly good. There's a good balance between magic, fantasy, and sci-fi, and the whole package works well. The main downside for me is the characters. I struggle to feel any connection to them or any empathy for them. I think the problem is that the characterization for each of them came way too late. By then, a good chunk of the book had already passed and I already made up my mind on how I felt about them. The flashbacks and the backstories, although well executed, couldn't do much. There are also some parts in the story that felt a bit weaker than others, but I think it wouldn't have been a problem if I liked the characters a bit more. If you skipped ahead to this outro for some reason, what you need to know is go read the book. Definitely recommend it, especially if you have thoughts on protagonist Valen and you want to come back argue with me. In the meantime, please subscribe for more content. I have an announcement coming up very soon, so keep an eye out for that. You can support me on Coffee if you'd like. If not, I still love you. Please come back. Take care! And goodbye, Gonchos. Beware of your siblings. Just saying.